Welcome to On Demand Module 2, Teaching Success with Reach Kindergarten. This is one of 6 on-demand modules to help you get started using National Geographic Reach. My name is Rosalind Wall, National Consultant for National Geographic Learning, and I'll be your presenter for this session. As I said before, this is one of 6 on-demand training modules to help prepare you to use Reach in your classroom. Hopefully, you've already viewed Module 1, Start the Year Off Right with Reach. If not, you may want to stop this session and view it now. After you complete this module, you will want to view the remaining modules depending on which grade level you teach or which Reach levels you will be using. We also have additional recorded webinars for our phonics and newcomer programs to support implementation success. In this session, we will be taking a thorough look at the instruction in Reach Kindergarten. We'll begin by reviewing the Reach student and teacher components. Then we'll get into the instruction for the big questions and the unit launch. Next, we'll take a detailed look at the language, vocabulary, reading, and writing instruction in Reach and the specialized strategies for English language learners. Finally, we'll take a detailed look at the assessment tools you'll have available for each unit. So let's begin with a review of the components. In kindergarten, most of the instruction will be delivered through the use of a big book. However, in each unit, students will have the opportunity to work with 2 read-together books. Students also have a practice book, or practice masters, and use of the myngconnect.com website, where they can access their e-editions, the digital library, and My Vocabulary Notebook. Reach also provides a variety of engaging classroom interactives for both teachers and students. There is a Read With Me Big Book for each unit, which contains 2 selections per book. There are teamwork activities that boost content learning in learning stations and have complete teacher's guides located on the myngconnect.com website. The vocabulary builders reinforce the vocabulary students have learned and can be used to check for understanding. And the Sing With Me Language Song Big Books creates a risk-free environment for trying out new language. We also have you covered when it comes to your teacher resources, which include 2 teacher's editions full of flexible instruction. The Reach Practice Book can be purchased as a consumable for each student if your district chooses, or as a Blackline Master so you can copy whatever you need for instruction. There is a different pricing option for each one, so check which option your district purchased. An annotated teacher's edition provides answers and models of student responses. The assessment handbook provides age-appropriate assessments that you can use for monitoring success. The Alpha Chant Phonics Kit contains phonics resources that will deliver systematic and scaffolded instruction in phonemic awareness, phonics, and high-frequency words. And of course, all of the resources that are available on myngconnect.com include the interactive Teacher's Edition. All right, let's review the instructional path for each unit. As a reminder, all 8 units follow the same instructional path. Each unit begins with a unit launch that builds background and sets the stage for learning. Then, each unit is then broken down into 2 parts with multiple reading selections in each part. And every unit ends with a unit wrap-up. Now, let's dive in and take a detailed look at the instruction. For this session, I'll be using Unit 3 as an example, but everything that I share will be applicable to any unit that you teach in Level A. If you focus on the purpose of each lesson rather than the specific content, you'll be able to easily apply what you learn to each unit because each unit follows the same pattern. The main goals of the unit launch are to engage the students and set the stage for learning by introducing the big question, which is the driving force of each unit. So we begin by introducing the big question using page 2 of the big book. Here you can see our big question is, what are animals like? You could also introduce this by writing it on the board, a piece of chart paper, or even establishing a bulletin board that you can add to throughout the unit. Once we've introduced the big question, it's time to tap into students' prior knowledge to see what they already know about the unit theme. After tapping into students' prior knowledge, it's time to build some background with the images available through the digital library on myngconnect.com. Simply search the digital library for images that relate to the unit theme and make connections to the student's prior knowledge. You can also use these images to build concepts about the theme. The final step in the unit launch is to begin the unit concept map. Again, this is something that can be added to your unit bulletin board. Students can also have their own copy to keep in their writing journals. Students will add to this concept map throughout the unit. Each concept map is tied to the big question for the unit, giving students the opportunity to continuously talk about the big question throughout the unit. And finally, the unit launch also includes some new at school instruction that helps develop students' social and interpersonal skills. The next part of the unit launch is to read the first selection in the Big Book. Remember, each Big Book contains a second paired selection identified in the bottom right corner of the front cover that will be read in Part 2 of the unit. Begin by previewing the book and predicting what the book will be about. Then, as you read the main selection aloud, use the sheltering strategies to provide additional support for your students. During the read aloud, you will also help build students' comprehension using the Build Comprehension questions in the bottom of the teacher wrap. Now that we've completed the unit launch, let's move on to Part 1. In Parts 1 and 2, the main selection will always be the Big Book selection that was read as part of the unit launch. Then, each part will have 2 additional reading selections. In Part 1, those selections will be a take-home genre book and a read-together book. In Part 2, you'll read the paired selection, the second selection in the Big Book, and a second read-together book. We're going to focus on Part 1 in this session, but I will be sure to point out any differences that you'll encounter within Part 2. Within each part, there are 10 days of instruction. Let's take a quick look at the Teacher's Edition Planner pages to see how this instruction is laid out. Each of the 10 days begins with language instruction, which includes language of the day and a phonological awareness lesson every day, and may include grammar or phonics instruction as well. You will also spend time each day focusing on vocabulary. This will include key academic or content vocabulary, as well as a few classroom vocabulary words that are specific to classroom procedures and skill instruction. Each day will also consist of reading instruction through the use of stories and songs. This includes the introduction of language functions, high-frequency words, comprehension skills, and reading strategies. And finally, you'll also spend time each day on writing through modeled writing, interactive writing, and various writing routines. And as you can see at the bottom of the planner, the Alpha Chant phonics instruction is also paced out for the 10-day cycle. You can learn more about Alpha Chant in the recorded webinar available on the MyNG Connect professional development page. By using our online lesson planner, you can find a plan that will fit your instructional needs. We have ready-to-go plans for half-day and full-day kindergarten, as well as for use in a dual language model. And of course, you can always create your own customized version as well. To learn more about the REACH online planner, please make a note to view the REACH online lesson planner video tutorial that shows you how to create your own plans, share plans, print plans, and more. Pause the session and take a moment to study the daily planner. Keeping in mind you can customize these plans by using the online lesson planner. How will you use this guide to help you plan your instruction? Once you are done, just click the play button and the session will resume. Okay, let's get started with day 1. As a reminder in REACH, every day begins with a language of the day. These are meant to be quick opportunities for students to talk to each other. You'll notice that the more students practice speaking with the language of the day, the more comfortable they will become with it, and the more language they'll produce. In kindergarten, every day also begins with instruction in phonological awareness. These are quick oral lessons that will help students develop their ability to hear, identify, and manipulate sounds and words. You will notice as we move through the unit that the phonological awareness lessons are thematically based, so that the students are learning the skill in the context of the overall unit. Now let's dive into day 1, where you will begin with the introduction of a language function. First, you will teach and model the language function using the language songbook. In this case, our language function is describing. Remember, each of the language songs is available on the CDs found in the front of your teacher's edition or online through MyNG Connect. Students will then practice and apply the language function. Multi-level strategies are provided at this point to help support children at all proficiency levels. And don't forget to check students' understanding at the end of a lesson. After introducing the language function, it's time to introduce some keywords. These will either be science or social studies vocabulary words. When introducing new keywords, you'll be using various pages from the unit's Big Book, but every time you introduce students to new vocabulary, you will use vocabulary routine number 1. This routine follows the steps seen here: pronounce, rate, define, and elaborate. A detailed description of the routine is found on page PD 37, behind the Teaching Routines and Strategies tab of your Teacher's Edition. Next, students will practice and apply the new words and language they've learned. Using a practice master, they will work with other students as they use the new language. And at the end of the lesson, students talk together about the big question. This is also a reminder to return to the unit concept map and add any new information. As you can see at the bottom of the page, this is the first of 4 lessons that will focus on keywords. And at the end of the day, we end with daily writing. The daily writing activity will vary from day to day, and it includes power writing, modeled writing, interactive writing, independent writing, and more. Here we have the modeled writing routine, which is located on PD4 in the front of your Reach Teacher's Edition. This routine allows you to model the process of composing a short piece of writing. In this example, we are focusing on adding captions to our work. At the end of each day, a close and assess reminder is also built in to wrap up the learning and assess students' understanding of the language and vocabulary lessons for the day. After language of the day and developing phonological awareness, day 2 introduces the grammar skill. This lesson will be done through the same process of teach, model, and practice apply. As you can see by the grammar skills trace, students will also focus on grammar on days 5 and 7. Next, it's time to use the vocabulary builder to review the keywords that were taught on day 1. You will also have access to reproducible vocabulary manipulatives that can be found on myngconnect.com. The vocabulary builders stimulate oral language development as students practice using the keywords and language functions that they've been learning. And it's an opportunity to check students' understanding of the words that's provided. The next step for day 2 is to introduce a new high-frequency word. Each time a new high-frequency word is taught, you will use the same routine. There's also a high-frequency word book students will complete as they practice using the word. Differentiated instruction is provided to support students at each proficiency level as they read the high-frequency word text. After students have taken turns reading to one another, an interactive word wall activity is provided in the teacher wrap. Day 2 wraps up with the daily writing lesson. In this example, you will use the modeled writing routine and the vocabulary manipulatives to show students how to put thoughts in writing using sentence frames. On day 3, after the language of the day and the phonological awareness lesson, there's an opportunity for a phonics and fluency review. If you're using Alpha Chance Phonics Kit for your phonics instruction, this will be a review of the phonics skill you began to teach on day 1. However, if you are not using Alpha Chance, you can still use this opportunity to review or introduce these specific phonics skills with other materials that you may have available to you in the classroom. Now it's time to introduce a comprehension skill. This will be done using the Big Book for the unit. As you can see in our example, we are using page 39, but in part 1, we will only be using the top half of the page to teach model the skill of sequencing. Students will practice apply the skill using the vocabulary manipulatives to retell the story in the appropriate order. And once again, multi-level strategies are provided to support all students. Once the comprehension skill has been introduced, it's time to share a story. In Part 1, this selection will be the take-home genre book. These are wordless books that the students will use to follow along as you read the story aloud. Students will then sequence the story by putting the pages in the correct order before retelling the story to each other. In Part 2, the story you share will be the paired selection from the Unit Big Book. You'll follow the same process you did in the reading of the first selection, beginning with previewing the selection before you read and using the sheltering strategies as needed. As you read, you will also use the questions provided to check understanding and build comprehension. After reading this second selection, students will compare the two selections from the Big Book, which were both the same genre. The instruction for this is provided in the back of the Big Book on the bottom half of the page we used in Part 1. So in this example, it would be the bottom of page 39. A practice master is provided to give students the opportunity to continue their comparisons. Now, if we go back to day 3 of Part 1, after the reading of the genre take-home book, the daily writing routine will be an interactive writing lesson that uses some type of graphic organizer to represent the comprehension skill taught, in this case, a sequence chain. Pause the session and take a few moments to explore the instruction for days 1, 2, and 3. As you explore, think about how these lessons focus on building theme language. Once you are done, just click the play button and the session will resume. In kindergarten, the instructional path for day 4 is exactly the same as day 1. And the instructional path for day 5 is exactly the same as day 2. So let's move on to day 6. Following the language of the day and phonological awareness development, there's another opportunity to build phonics and fluency. Again, if you're using Alpha Chants, this goes right along with the lessons you're conducting. If not, you can always use other materials to teach or review these skills. Day 6 also gives students the opportunity to practice and apply both of the language functions they've been working with. In this example, we are describing from day 1 and expressing likes from day 4. This lesson will always include some type of cooperative learning routine which allows students to practice using the language functions as they work together and learn from one another. On day 6, it's also time to read one of the Read Together books. Remember, there are 2 Read Together books per unit, 1 for each part. When reading the Read Together books, you will always follow the same routine. Begin by introducing the book and setting a purpose for the reading. Then, when it's time to read, you will choose one of the 3 reading options provided. These 3 levels of instruction provide you with the ability to differentiate the text to meet all students at their level. As you can see, for students who are below level, you will simply walk through the book, helping students name the pictures and have them echo your reading. On-level students will walk through the text and name the pictures on their own before using the closed sentence and filling in the appropriate text. And for students who are above level, you'll read the text aloud as you track the print before they reread chorally and track the print on their own. After reading the book with all students, use the graphic organizer and activity to check understanding and build comprehension. And of course, day 6 wraps up with the daily writing lesson and an opportunity to close and assess. Day 7 provides a review of the 2 high-frequency words the students learned on days 2 and 5. Before moving into the last grammar lesson for this part, notes about possible language transfer issues are built right in if necessary, so you have strategies for correcting this issue right at your fingertips. Day 7 is also where you will teach the reading strategy. Each unit will focus on one reading strategy, and it will be the same in both parts of the unit. You'll begin by teaching students the strategy, then modeling the strategy using the Big Book. Once you've modeled the strategy a few times, students will practice and apply the strategy to different sections of the Big Book. Differentiated strategies are provided so students at all levels can participate. As I mentioned, each unit will focus on one reading strategy. Here you can see a list of the strategies that are covered in kindergarten. As students move up through the different levels of reach, they will continue to use the same strategies. You can read more about reading strategies and why they were selected in Dr. Sylvia Thompson's paper, Build Strategic Thinking, on page PD23 in the front of your teacher's edition. At the end of Day 7, the daily writing lesson includes an opportunity for students to share their writing by displaying their completed projects around the room. On days 8 and 9, you will be using the Cooperative Learning Book Group routine. Begin by grouping your students into 4 small groups. Each group will work with a known book and a new book each day, and all students will rotate through the 4 groups over days 8 and 9. The known books will be the high-frequency word books they created on days 2 and 5, and the Read Together book from day 6. The unknown books will be the Talk Together books for the unit. As you can see, detailed instructions are provided in each book. And again, multi-level strategies are provided to support children at all proficiency levels. You can read more about the Cooperative Learning Book Group routine on page PD42 in the front of your teacher's edition. After the guided read and talk sessions, students will work together in a cooperative learning group to talk about the big question and add information to the unit concept map. And of course, there's a daily writing lesson which can be done on day 8 or day 9 or both. Pause the session and take a few moments to explore the instruction for days 1 through 3. As you explore, think about how these lessons focus on expanding theme language. Once you're done, just click the play button and the session will resume. In Part 1, on day 10, students will either present an oral language project or participate in a theme theater presentation. Either way, Day 10 in Part 1 is all about developing oral language. Multi-level strategies are provided for both projects, as well as oral language rubrics for evaluating student performance. Once the project is complete, they will write about their experience in the daily writing lesson. In Part 2, Day 10 is all about reviewing the concept learned throughout the unit and assessing students in specific areas. There are 3 areas: language function, vocabulary, and comprehension, where you will assess the students using the assessment handbook. We'll take a closer look at assessment in a few minutes. If you are using Alpha Chance to teach phonics, use the LAP books to review the phonics and fluency skills. Next, use images from the digital library or the vocabulary manipulatives to assess grammar and writing. Finally, check comprehension using the Big Book to review sequencing and review the reading strategy with students. And now it's time to wrap up the unit. Begin by restating and answering the big question for the unit before completing the unit concept map. Then, students will share their ideas by choosing one of the presentation options provided. As you can see, these options are also differentiated by language proficiency level. Throughout, and at the end of each unit, REACH provides multiple opportunities to assess students' understanding by monitoring their progress and helping determine any additional instructional needs. If students haven't mastered a particular skill, additional instruction is provided. At the end of every unit, in your teacher's edition, you will find the Monitor Progress page. This page will list all of the language, vocabulary, and reading assessments that are available for that unit. Let's take a look at an example of each. Each unit contains numerous opportunities for students to use language as they participate in authentic communicative activities. You can observe students using these activities to assess their progress in language acquisition by using the performance rubrics. These rubrics assess language functions, retelling, theme theater, and the oral language projects. After working through a number of units, you will have accumulated several language assessments for each student. As you review the scores over time, you should begin to see a pattern emerge. This will enable you to tailor instruction to students' individual levels of language proficiency. The keywords tests assess students' knowledge of both the content and academic vocabulary words. Each test includes 10 multiple-choice items to assess the vocabulary taught in the unit. You will read aloud the script to all students, and the test should only take about 10 minutes. To assess students' recognition of the high-frequency words taught in the program, each unit has a high-frequency words test that includes only 4 multiple-choice items. Again, you would read the script aloud, and the test should only take about 5 minutes. REACH offers comprehension tests that align with the instruction of each unit. Each test includes picture-based multiple-choice items to assess student progress on the comprehension skills taught in the unit. Students apply the key concepts and skills that they have learned throughout the unit to new picture-based passages that are related to the unit theme. This is another 10-minute test that should be read aloud to the students. Once all students have taken the keywords, high-frequency words, and comprehension tests, use the data from their student profile sheets to determine which students need additional instruction. Let's look at an example. Here, we see the completed student profile for Olivia. As you can see, she mastered both the keywords assessment with 70% and the high-frequency words assessment with 100%. But when it came to comprehension, she only got 2 out of 4 correct. When we transfer the student profile data to the class profile sheet, we can see at a quick glance which students may need some additional instruction in each area. In this example, it looks like we should provide the whole group with additional instruction in the comprehension skill. The additional instruction options are in your Teacher's Edition on the Monitor Progress page. Here you will find the additional instruction lessons for each skill area that can be used to reteach students as needed. All of the assessment resources I just shared are available in your assessment handbook as well as online on MyNG Connect. From the home page, simply click on the Resources button under Assessment, and the resources will be listed under each unit of instruction. Now, when I was talking about days 3 and 6, I mentioned using AlphaChant for the phonics and fluency instruction. If you are using the AlphaChant program to teach phonics, the lessons are already included in your daily planner pages. Here at the bottom, you can see which lessons should be covered each day from the AlphaChant kit. AlphaChant follows a simple instructional path for each letter. For a detailed overview of the AlphaChant kit, be sure to watch the recorded webinar available on the REACH Professional Development website under On-Demand Training. Congratulations! You have almost completed the second on-demand module for REACH. In this lesson, we took a detailed look at the REACH student and teacher components, and we walked through the big questions in the unit launch. Then, we took a detailed look at the language, vocabulary, reading and writing instruction in REACH and the specialized strategies for ELLs. And finally, we took a detailed look at the assessment tools available for each unit. Here are some next steps to think about before your next session. Take some time to study your next unit, and schedule some time to view the remaining on-demand modules for your grade level. Thank you for attending. Don't forget to check the Attachments tab on the left side of the screen for your certificate of completion, and check back soon for your next module.